Hello, this is Erica with cramfighter.com, and today I'm going to be showing you how to use Cramfighter to build a step one study schedule that's 12 weeks long. So I'm on the cramfighter.com homepage, and I just wanted to share with you that what we are going to be following is basically a 12-week study plan that can be used by you as sort of a template or inspiration for how you want to build your own 12-week study plan. So we do offer some sample study schedules, again, just to be used kind of more as inspiration. You can choose to use them in that way as a starting point for your own schedule, or you can follow them to a T. To access these sample study schedules, go to the Cramfighter homepage and then scroll to the bottom and click on Sample USMLE Study Schedules. As you can see, we offer Excel and PDF versions of 7-week, 8-week, and 12-week study schedules. So again, feel free to use these as inspiration. Everyone's schedule is going to be different. These are built in a very particular way using certain resources, so you may or may not be using the same resources. So what we are going to be showing is how to employ a tactic that we find students often use here at Cramfighter, organizing their USMLE study schedule into study blocks. Cramfighter does allow anyone at any time to come to our site and try Cramfighter for free for 7 days. So what I'm working in now is the free trial version of Cramfighter. So let's go ahead and start building our study blocks. The way this 12-week study plan is going to be constructed is basically roughly the first 2 months is going to consist of a fairly light schedule where the person is just focusing on QBank questions, and then the final roughly 1 month out of the 12-week period is going to be their dedicated study period, so they're going to be focusing on UWorld, first aid book, and sketchy medical videos. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing you'll do when you go to create your study plan at Cramfighter is tell Cramfighter what exam you're taking. So obviously, as I mentioned, this is going to be for the USMLE Step 1, and it is for a exam date that is going to be roughly 3 months in advance. So today is currently June 6th, 2018. I'm going to fast forward it to September 7th, 2018, and schedule this person. That is their exam date that they're taking. So basically, Cramfighter will work backwards from that date to build a study plan. So now we're going to set up the first study block. As I mentioned, this first study block is going to basically just consist of QBank questions. Before we enter the QBanks that we're going to use, we need to enter the length of our study block. So this study block will be starting today. And then as I mentioned, I'm going to have it end about roughly 2 months into the 12-week period. So it's actually I'm going to have it end on July 31st. Once you're happy with those dates, you'll hit Save the Study Block. On the next step, you will enter in any catch-up days or days that you don't want to have Cramfighter schedule you any study tasks. So we always recommend that students bake in catch-up days into their schedule so that if they start to fall behind, they can use that catch-up day to do just that, to catch up. So in this person's schedule, I'm going to set them up with a catch-up day every second Thursday. On this page, you can also enter in any practice exams that you're taking. In this first study block, we're not going to be scheduling in any practice exams, so I'll skip that for now. We'll cover it in study block 2. And then, as I mentioned, you can also enter in any unscheduled days where, say, you might have a vacation day or something where you know you won't be able to do any studying, so Cramfighter will refrain from putting any study tasks on that day. In this person's case, they're going to take a beach day on July 4th, so we're going to give them a day off. And you can add many or as many days as you want using this add a day off button and just add all the days that you need to. Hit save. On the next page, this is where you add the resources that you're going to be using for a given study block. So as I mentioned, this person is going to mostly be focusing on QBank, or they are going to be focusing on QBank questions in the first part of this 12-week study plan. And I'm sorry, I should also mention that I'm actually using the PDF version of the 12-week sample study schedule that I mentioned at the beginning of this video. So the person, they are going to be using Kaplan and Firecracker QBank in this first study block. So you can, when you're adding resources, you can go through and kind of scroll through and select them from the list, which is very tedious. I recommend instead that you go through and just type in the brand name of the resource and find the one, even if you need to have, if you need to focus it more, you can kind of like start typing in and predictive text will pull it up. So this first one that the person's going to use is the Kaplan Q Bank. On this page, you can enter how many total number of questions that you want to get through or the daily number of questions that you want to add to this to each day of your study block. So I'm just going to give this person, because it's going to be kind of a lighter schedule, they're going to do 1,000 QBank questions from Kaplan in this first nearly 2 months of their study block. Hit save, and then we'll repeat the process for any additional resources that they're using in this particular study block. So the second one they're going to be using is Firecracker QBank. Same with Kaplan, I'm going to only give them 1,000 questions. So they'll have 2,000 questions in total just to kind of go through in the first roughly 2 months of this 12-week study block, study plan. So once you've entered in the resources that you're going to be using in a particular study block, you'll hit continue. I'm going to skip this sorting options page because it does not apply to our QBank questions. It only affects book and lecture tasks. We'll cover that in the second part of this video when we're doing our second study block in this plan. So we can just hit save to go to the next page. Now on this page, this person is going to be spending between, here on QBank hours, they're going to be spending between 2 and 4 hours per day on their study schedule. So they're going to be doing it about 2 hours on the weekdays and 4 hours on the weekends. So we can go ahead and start changing these to be custom to each day, how we want to have CramFighter allocate tasks to us that will fill that time. Now, again, this is obviously completely customizable to your own schedule. Like if you have only 1 hour that you can work on Wednesdays, but you have 5 on Mondays, you can make that customization here and then hit save when everything looks good. And once you've added everything that you need to, you get a summary on this final page, and you can kind of go through each of these green links are hyperlinked back into the section if you need to make an edit to it. So that's our first study block. We can see that we're kind of like, we're scheduling only 15 questions per hour. And a typical other study plan similar to this one, our students will be looking at just in general about 21 per hour. So we're, like I said, this is a pretty light study schedule, but that's the way it's by design set up to be. So instead of hitting finish and view schedule at this time, we have to add the second study block. So this second study block is, as I mentioned, when we assume this person is going to have their dedicated period starting. So roughly a 4-week dedicated study period. Let's look back at this. So they actually scheduled themselves a 3-day break in between the QBank first study block and the beginning of their dedicated study block. So we'll do that similar here. So the last study block actually ended on July 31st. So we're going to have this one start, going back to, so here's July. So here's the end date of the first study block. Then I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 days off, and I'm going to have this study block start on August 4th. And then if you recall, our exam date was on September 7th, so CramFighter will default your study block to end on the day before your exam, but I'm actually going to have this person end 2 days before their exam, so they have 1 cushion day of no studying before they have to go in and take their actual Step 1 exam. So this is a roughly 30-day study period for their dedicated. So this is going to be study block number 2. Once we've got those dates finalized, we hit enter, or sorry, hit save. Similar to the first study block, we can plug in periodic catch-up days once again. This is only a 4-week study period, so maybe they might want to go more frequent to have catch-up days, especially because it's going to be a more intense schedule. So we could try plugging in every Thursday. I believe this person has, oh, it looks like they only plugged in 1 catch-up day, but we recommend having at minimum once every I would say probably 2 weeks. So maybe I'll do every second Thursday in here. Um, in this second part of their study plan in dedicated study, we do recommend that they plug in some practice exams. So this is where you'll do that. You'll plug in the name and whatever you want to name it of your first practice test and then the date that you plan on taking it. So their dedicated study period is starting here on the 4th. Maybe we'll give them a practice exam on the 10th so that they can kind of see in the first, after the first roughly week, how are they doing? Then they can take their second practice test maybe 2 weeks after that so that they can kind of narrow down on any areas that they really need to focus on in the final 2-week stretch before their exam happens. So this vacation day is carrying over from what we entered on their previous study block. And if you have additional days off that you need to enter for this study block, you can do that here with the Add a Day Off button. So once that's all set up, you'll hit save. So as with the first study block, the next step after you kind of call out your special practice exam days and your unscheduled days, you add the resources to this study block. So as I mentioned, this person is going to be focusing on first aid, Sketchy, and UWorld. So let's go ahead and start adding those. Again, it's way more efficient to use the search box and start typing in the resource name instead of scrolling down this huge list. So the difference with this is when you select book and lecture resources, you can actually choose to cherry pick certain chapters, or you can just click this button to select all of them to add them to the study block. To keep things short and sweet for this demo, I'm just going to select all the chapters. The next thing that they're going to add is the UWorld QBank. Whoops, little typo. So I'll select that, and this person is going to do 1,500 UWorld questions in their study block number 2. Finally, once it loads, I will go to Sketchy and add that lecture resource to my study block. Same thing as with a book, because the lectures are broken out into chapters and topics, you can cherry pick them or just select all to add them all to this given study block. We'll hit select on that, so it adds all of them. Now, what you are seeing is as we add the resources, they show up in the selected resources list, but you also see is this little stats box. This will show you if your study plan is so far looking to be in line with average students' plans that we see being created. So you're getting this little warning on the lecture series because it looks like Cramfighter is anticipating that we are only allocating 42 minutes of lecture or of time for each hour of lecture, but most students will add like an hour and 25 minutes. And this could be because they watch it at like 1.5 speed. So we can just leave this alone for now, but it is kind of warning us that we may not have enough time allocated to watch all of those lectures that we just added to our schedule from Sketchy. So let's move ahead and go to the next step. Once you've added the resources to this second study block that we're working with, we'll hit continue. Now, this is where you get to select the sorting options because we have added book and lecture resources to the study block. So if you know there's particular topics that you want to tackle first, you can use this list of subjects down here and just drag and drop and reorder them as you need, custom to your particular study approach. If maybe there's some areas that you're stronger in that you want to move to being last because you feel good about them, and so you want to tackle the harder things first, it's completely up to you. But once everything looks in the order that you want it to be, you will hit save. Now, on this dedicated study plan, the person is obviously allocating a lot more time to studying than they were in their first study block. So I'm going to up the hours so that they're doing a total of 9 per weekday. And we'll keep it at 7 per weekend. You can obviously customize this, as I mentioned before, to what works with your schedule. Maybe you have more time on the weekends and less time on the weekdays. You can update that all here. Hit save on that. So same as before, we are now looking at the summary of the study block information that we just entered for this second study block, this dedicated study period, final roughly 30 days in the 12-week study plan. So if everything looks good, we can hit finish and view schedule. CramFighter will kind of work the magic in the background and put together a study plan that shows you exactly what you need to do every single day. And as I mentioned, I'm in the trial version of CramFighter, so we are unfortunately not going to be able to see beyond the first 7 days. But what you can see is that as we set up in the very first part of the video with our study block number 1, it's focusing only on Firecracker and QBank questions. Firecracker and Kaplan QBank questions. So you can kind of look ahead and see. But I unfortunately don't go beyond Tuesday the 12th because, as I said, I'm in a 7-day free trial, so we kind of gate the access to anything beyond that. But that is how you would use CramFighter to build your 12-week study schedule based on the rough study schedule template that we had put on our website. If you have any questions, please email us at contact@cramfighter.com. There's a little message here that you can leave behind. Or you can chat with us if this window is attended by a live person. It just happens to be outside of business hours for that person. So, but no, it's always there as an option. Thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to seeing you on board soon.